Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Suzanne Pachetti Johnson. I'm the program manager for Avenues to Wellness. We are a program of the Frank R. Howard Foundation, and this is our speaker series. So I am very proud to introduce our speaker today, Diane Smalley. Diane has been practicing Asian medicine for 39 years. She's an acupuncturist, an herbalist, and one of the great healers in our community. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Diane.
Thank you all for coming. Can everyone hear me okay? So here we are in our wonderful little town of Willits together, and just is amazing to think that 4 billion years ago, the first cells arose out of the sea. And through several billions of generations of the species going through their coming and going, birth and death, and here we are, the humans, the Anthropocene, in the Anthropocene. We're a species so powerful that we've inhabited at least half the globe, half the land. And we all live on this one precious planet. We're kind of suffering, we're kind of lacking a common language, especially in this country, to describe our relationship with nature. And one day, I found myself thinking, you know, if people just had the most basic understanding of how their body works, just the simplest, most basic information, then they'd be able to stay well. And isn't it so much better to stay well than to try to come back, although the body's an amazing healing organism, so it can. And so this model sort of started coming through to my systematic brain. And just recently I looked up, I was curious, you know, when's the best time to learn a new language, for instance. And definitely by the age of 10 is the best. And that fits right in with my dream of this model becoming a curriculum for children to learn just the basics, the most simple basics about the body. And I've tried to keep the language very simple, and you'll find that it is very simple. I've had 3 main influences. Like Suzanne said, I've been studying Asian medicine studying and practicing for over 40 years. And also I have, for about 29 years, I've been practicing Native American ceremony, a women's long dance that I go to. And then I also was lucky enough to cross paths with this guy named C.W. Smith. He's a chiropractor by trade, but he taught me, he had his own way of looking at the body. It was mostly through applied kinesiology, the true kind, and I learned a lot about from the standard process type of information from him, and I've been using that information ever since. And something else that we know is that in China, most everyone does have that common language. They know about yin and yang and the 5 elements. Everyone knows what time of year it is and what colors and what the colors mean and what foods to eat. But we just don't have that here. But what we do have is the internet. We have Dr. Google. And so, like I said, I'm keeping this as practical as possible. And it doesn't really matter what we believe in. This is not a belief system. But can't we all agree that we live on the earth, we drink the water, and we breathe the air, and we survive on the increase, and we all need a warm place in the winter to be. So there's going to be a whole lot of words in this presentation, and the first 2 pages of your packet have virtually all the words that I'm going to be talking about. You can follow along or you can just look at it later. It doesn't really matter because it's all going to be up on the screen. We know that we come from the one, and I like to think of that as a circle. And when we look up at the sky, the moon is a circle. Well, it's a sphere, but it looks like a circle. The sun looks like a circle. From a distance, the earth looks like a circle. And then there's that equation where you divide the circumference by the diameter of a circle and you get pi. How many people have heard of pi? How many like to eat pie? All right. And so that equation, I kind of think of it as the math god saying that it's all about the circle. And the circle to me means standing in a circle. When we stand in a circle, we can all see each other. And it's not like someone can hide, or we can't forget about that person over there because we can't see them. We can see them all. And so that is a wonderful model for our society that would be nice to incorporate. It's kind of like the horizontal way of thinking. And so one day, the sage stepped out of her hut on the way to the river to take a bath. And all of a sudden, she'd been meditating all night, so she was in that mood, and she saw the river and the mountains. She said to herself, I have discovered the great principle of life. It's the sun on the mountain, the light mountain, and the darkness in the valley, and the flow of the river. And everywhere she looked, she saw the same thing. She saw that everything was in these dualities. And we call this the Daichi. And I'll come back to that. And so we call this, nowadays, we call the two polarities, we call them yin and yang. We'll learn a little Chinese here. Chinese is in monosyllables, but each syllable has a tone. There's 4 tones, but we're going to learn 2. So yin is the first tone. Yin, let me hear you say yin, or yin, yin. And then it's yang. The second tone, it's the second tone, it goes up. Yang. Good, very good. All right. Here in this country, I think the closest we have is the oxymoron. And like maybe bittersweet, or jumbo shrimp, or vegan bacon. And really, the key definition is light and dark for yin and yang. And then we can also say above and below. And so yang is the light and above. Yin is the dark and below. There's the yang, that's how we write it with a little accent like that, and the yin, yin. And I'll just read this one quote I found. It's a Chinese cosmological term for the supreme ultimate state of undifferentiated, absolute, and infinite potential, the oneness before duality, from which yin and yang originate. And so here's another picture I found of a very similar location, but looking from the mountains down to the ocean, down to the water. And I thought that one was just so beautiful. These are the karst mountains in the province of Guangxu. Now is where you get to learn everything about Chinese medicine, Asian medicine included. Is a better term nowadays. And so yang is hot, yin is cold. Yang is on the surface, and yin is when the symptoms are deeper. And yang is when the symptoms are full, and yin is when we'd say there's an emptiness. These are called the 8 principles of Asian medicine, Chinese medicine, and it all comes down to this. If you can understand yin and yang, you hold the universe in your hands. This is one of the lines. And so, yin and yang are the root of life. You can read that. And so like I said, the moon is a circle, and we also think of the moon as being yin, and the sun is yang. And yin is water, yang is fire. And this is a word that I've been playing with lately because you hear it a lot. So what would be the opposite of free? So we could say the circulation is moving freely, but we also think of being free. What's the opposite of free? I think I heard bound. Yes, bound. That's my favorite word because, like we hear all these days, freedom, we want our freedom. And for every concept, so that would be yang. Freedom is very yang. So we have to balance that out with the yin. And I'm not free to impinge on anyone else's freedom. So that means I need to live within the boundaries of what's right. Wouldn't that be nice if we could agree on that? And so calm would be yin, and excited would be more yin. Yang, I'm sorry, getting those mixed up. And of course they do mix with each other. And then the blood is, we say the blood nourishes the qi, and the qi moves the blood. So they are a yin and yang pair. I wanted to show you this because this is just the most amazing little creature I think I've seen. That's the size of it. It's a little jumping spider. And it's called a peacock spider because it has this flap that flips up. And then two of its legs go like this, and they kind of go like that. And those two little legs right there, see the eyes? Those two little front paws, they look like they kind of go like this. And it's doing its mating dance. It's excited. This is an example of excited. Look it up on YouTube. It's fantastic. And there's a million different varieties of the colors. They're really spectacular. This is an example of being excited, moving from side to side on the branch. And so we call that's one phase of the nerve system in our body. And then the other phase is our calm. I like this diagram because it shows, let me see if I can get my thing on here. Oh, there it is. So during the day we use we're awake and the energy makes a curve like that, and then at night the yin replenishes, and then during the day we use the yang again. And so we can even fit in that daiji into that wave. And so when we talk about the qi of the body, that's the qi right there. It's that line in between the two, because the qi comes out of that interplay of the yin and yang. All right. So here's an example of a little creature, a little painted bunting, who flew a long way and got very tired. So you can see she's got he's got feathers all ruffled, showing how calm he is. When you see a bird like that, you can tell that they're calm, feeling calm. Now, isn't that amazing, nature? All the colors of the rainbow in one little creature. And so, let's take another step. And I'm standing here facing to the west. So what direction does that mean you're facing? Okay. Everybody point to the north. Good. All right. Very good. Very good. So here we have our 1 and our 2. We have a phrase in Asian medicine. The 1 becomes the 2 becomes the 3, and the 3 become the 10,000 things. And the 3, I like to think of that as body, heart, mind. So that's a 3 that we have. So we've got these interesting numbers. So we're going to do lots of 5s. And so we've got our four cardinal directions plus center. And this comes a lot from my practice with the Native American ceremony, because we celebrate the directions, and we call the middle one the center. And then the common traditional arrangement of the elements that go with those directions are these: air in the east, fire in the south, water in the west, and earth in the north. And then the center is above, below, and in front of and behind. And so that's one way to set up the elements. And I've included a picture here of the site where we do our ceremony. And we're looking at the sunset there. The west is coming in. So here's our directions. And in the northern hemisphere, we have the sunrise in the east and so forth. And the center is the now. And then we have the seasons. Spring equinox today, happy spring, 8 o'clock last night. And then I'll go all around the circle. And I celebrate the seasons. Does everybody else celebrate the seasons? It's a wonderful way to mark the course of the year, isn't it? And I was playing with this, and I just thought, I'm going to talk about the southern hemisphere too. And it's the first, when I did this, it was the first time that I thought of sunrise, of course, is still in the east, but noon is to the north. And so it really kind of gave me a feeling of being there. You know, the summer solstice is also, when the sun is furthest to the north, and winter solstice to the south. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So looking at traditional Asian medicine, this is how the 5 elements are created, and there's a relationship between each one. What I realized about it is we have wood and metal. And for us on Turtle Island here, I thought, well, let's fold those into earth. And let's look at that a little differently. And and then there's a relationship that goes like so between all of those. Orange arrow is called a promoting cycle, and the rust arrow is more the restraining cycle. And when the 5 elements are arranged in this way, we say, so wood, fire, metal, water, and earth in the center. So, oh, there they are. I had them all there. I thought, just blending this all together, how would I arrange this for Turtle Island? And so I think of air, the sky is above. This is from studying Tai Chi mostly. The sky is above and earth is below. So started there. And the water for us here is in the west. And fire, that leaves fire for the east. And that it makes sense to me because that's the sunrise. And that's the warmest time of the day, is to put the fire in the east. And so the center is the spiral. I call it the life wave. And yes, for those nerds in the audience, we're talking about the Fibonacci spiral. And it's a very simple equation that when you map it out, it gives you this wonderful spiral design. And you've probably seen some of these type of artwork where they map it out on a computer, and it makes these ever-expanding spirals. And this is a very simple one, actually. But then we see that spiral in the sunflower. See that there? And there's even an aloe that grows in a spiral. It's called a spiral aloe. So, and when we start looking at nature, not only do we see the yin and yang, we see this spiral pattern. And then we have the classic nautilus shell, and if we look at it, it fits right into that spiral. And so it's the geometry of life. We see spirals in water and whirlpool and tornadoes. And who knows what this is? Yes, Romanesco. It's one of my favorite fractals, because each cone is a spiral. See, these are arranged in a spiral. And then each one of those little cones, unfortunately, it's not as easy to see, but each one of those little cones has a spiral of little cones that have spirals, that have little cones that have spirals. It's amazing. And it's really good, too. It's in the cabbage family. It's in the broccoli, it's very similar to broccoli. And so, yes, Rose got the Romanesco. Now let's start applying those 5 elements to our body. And so when we think of air, what sense would you think of with the air? Yeah, the smelling, the sense of smell. And so, and then this time of year we're smelling the blossoms. Isn't that fantastic? And then how about earth? what would you think of with earth? Earth is where our food comes from, so I like to think of that as related to taste. And then how about water? Water's very noisy, isn't it? When it's raining, we can always hear the water. When it's still, it's kind of quiet, but then there's usually a little drop of something going whoop somewhere. And then lastly, the fire, of course, is we feel the warmth of the sun this time of year. And in the center, one of my favorite senses, the sense of sight. Because we can see our loved ones all around us. And these senses are very important for determining what's going on in the body and making a diagnosis of our own situation. That's what we're getting at. So we want to be able to tell what's going on in our own body. And in Chinese medicine, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is a fantastic chart of the inner classic of how to create qi. And it's a little hard to see, but it's a whole, you can see the spine and there's all kinds of things going on, energy being made. And the sage is sitting way at the top right there. So I like this because it's kind of a picturesque way of looking at the body that's unique to China. Because there wasn't any dissection for quite a long time until very recently in China. And so it was all very poetic, and I have this fantasy of being up on the mountain, on one of those high mountains in the monastery, and doing Tai Chi and martial arts all day, and sitting around at the meals talking about what we discovered. Because I know that when I used to be a runner, I found that every time I went out for a run, I would learn something new about how the body works. And so I can just sort of imagine what that must have been like. And also on the right side there, I found this great list of the different elements of the government that are assigned to the different organs. Like the heart is the emperor, we call it. And you say the liver makes the plans and the gallbladder makes the decisions. And so people who are kind of indecisive, we think, what's going on with the gallbladder? So it's interesting, and we would definitely want to include that. This is what I came up with, like I said. And so for the air, of course, we think of breathing and the lungs. And then for the earth, again, like I mentioned, that's where our food comes from. And so we need to process that food. And so rather than just calling it the liver, I had to say the food tube with it, because there's lots of organs along with that. And the kidney, it goes with water. And that's classic Chinese medicine. Kidney and water are the same element. And for fire, the other classic connection is the heart. And that's an organ that never sleeps. It's always pumping. And then in the center, think of the brains. The brains are kind of left out of Chinese medicine. We don't really even talk about the nerves that much. It's there, but it's not a distinct organ. And so I stuck them in there. And so why do I have it as plural? Because there's the head brain and the gut brain, and they're all connected. The term nowadays, we call it the microbiome, and I'll be referring to that a lot. The microbiome is the whole sum total of all the microbes, the fungi, the bacteria, the viruses that live in and on us all the time. And just being here, except for people wearing masks, just being here, we're exchanging microbiome information with each other. It's pretty amazing. And so obviously the lungs are all about that exchange of air. It's not just oxygen in, it's CO2 out, very important. And because every cell needs that oxygen and needs to get rid of its CO2. And the liver is all about digestion. And the kidney is a key filter of the body. And because of its location right in the center of the body and the adrenal glands that sit on top, it has a lot to do with regulating things. It puts the kidneys and the adrenals both put out hormones that do things like regulate the blood sugar and the blood pressure. And of course, the heart is all about circulating the blood through the body. And the microbiome, we're finding out, it has so many more important roles that it covers. It's all about keeping our metabolism balanced. and it's a key part of the immune system in, noticing what's there and sending messages all over the place. And it has a direct nerve connection with the brain. And as one of my teachers, I've been studying with Zach Bush, he said the brain didn't write your term paper. The microbiome is where the information comes from, because all that information is coming in from outside, and the colon is the home of the microbiome. And so there's direct nerve relationship with that. And he says the brain is really more about processing. And he should know, he's triple board certified physician and knows everything. He's really quite knowledgeable. One other thing I'll say about the liver is that all of the blood from the digestive tract that supplies all the food tube goes to the liver first. So the liver is in charge of all of that. And so it's really big on, that's why I mentioned that it's all about producing. The liver's not just a filter, it's a factory. It's making lots of things like enzymes and nutrients and so forth. Just going around again a little bit more, the lungs, I put this up here, you won't be able to see it, but you can see at the bottom it says ewg.org. I think I have that on your handout. It stands for Environmental Working Group. And this is the type of thing that they have on their site. And any product that you might have bought at the store, you can look it up and you can see whether it's safe or not. And it's very, very important resource for us. And I just beg you to go through your house and look at the labels of all the stuff you put on your body, all the stuff you spray in the air, anything like that, and see if there's any chemicals on the back. And if there are, find a good replacement. There's all kinds of good things, good products that don't have these chemicals in them. Very, very important. And the reason I mention that is because our lungs are a key area that take a lot of that in. And so we really want to make a big point of getting rid of anything that's not food. In Chinese medicine, Asian medicine, we talk about the climates. And once again, just like hot and cold, inside, outside, the 8 principles, these are also key elements of the diagnosis of how things work and the patterns that we see. And they are the simplest possible words you can imagine: dry, heat, damp, cold, and wind. You can have a hot wind or a cold wind. You can have damp heat or damp cold. You can have empty heat or full heat. So the 8 principles interact with all the different elements. And so to translate that a little bit more into American, so I'll call these conditions. And so dehydration is one of the first ones. Very, very important for health. For instance, the large intestine needs a lot of water free to pull in to make the stool. Very important for our digestion. And that one's pretty obvious. We're all familiar with that. Inflammation, another key source of imbalances. Those 5 words there: heat, pain, redness, swelling, and impairment. Those are the signs of inflammation. If you have any of those, so any pain is a sign of inflammation. So that's a first way that we can tell what's going on in the body. And for damp, I'd call that accumulation. The body has ability to store a lot of things. The liver can store bile if it's not flowing very well. We can store histamine, and that causes more inflammation. We can store sugar and fat and what I call residue. I kind of like that word. It's kind of polite. We can also store minerals in the body and chemicals. So that's why we want to get rid of those chemicals like PFAS and stuff like that. And then for depletion, that's when we just get worn out from too much work and maybe not eating well. And then the last one, I was thinking, what's number 5? And I thought, yep, it's going to be aging. And I have to say, I'm getting to that point where just starting to peek over the edge and see what's over there in that aging category. And I think of it as the winds of time. And that's the body, heart, mind making some changes. And so now let's look at, rather than focusing on what's wrong, I like to focus on what will help. That's a good attitude to have when we're looking at this. And so here's those conditions that we just mentioned. Let's talk about what will help those conditions. And so dehydration, obviously you want to drink water. And a simple formula, if you take your body weight and divide it by 2, that's the number of ounces you want to drink a day. And for most of it's a couple of quarts. So that's kind of what I think of it. So I have a pitcher, a nice clear pitcher that I fill up, and I figured out what 2 quarts is, and I keep it on my table, and I pour from that and then I can see how much I'm drinking. So you might not get the whole 2 quarts in every day, but it's a good goal to have. And these foods, melon, citrus, celery, cucumber, salad, there's lots of water in those foods, and it's really the best way to, and it also helps the body to kind of bring the water into the cells. Then also, in small letters there, it says, with your water, you can put just a pinch of sea salt and a little bit of lemon, and the salt, actually the water follows the salt into the cell. So it's a good way to get more hydrated. And the 2 of those together helps with our digestion. So a little bit of that with our meals is good. And so for inflammation, number 1, if there was one supplement I was going to recommend, although it's best to get all things from food, omega-3 fatty acid. That's kind of become familiar. It's one of the essential fatty acids. And we need omega-3 and omega-6, the 2 essential fatty acids. We need them in fairly even amounts. And omega-6 is very easy to get. Omega-3 is hard to get, so it's easy to get too much omega-6. So we want to really focus on taking in some of the good quality oils. And then turmeric and ginger, great for inflammation. And parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. They're all anti-inflammatory. And so for accumulation, it's becoming really popular here in Willits, the shrub. A shrub is just a quick name for apple cider vinegar tonic. Kind of too long. And a shrub is a drink that has vinegar in it. And vinegar, as you'll see at the bottom of that page, has amazing ability. It's really great to help the body. It's really great for bile flow, and it helps the body to release things, and so it's a good support for the body. But who likes to drink vinegar? I'm not really crazy about the flavor, but by the time you mix it in with several different things, like a little sparkling water, a little no sugar juice, or some tea, it tastes pretty good. And the juice of a lemon or lime. I love lime, so I usually use that. And then it's a great way to take some different tinctures that you might be taking. If some adaptogen kind of tinctures. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Oh, and beets, of course. Beets are the premier food for bile flow. Just all around fantastic. And I see somebody looking at someone. How many of you don't really care for beets? Okay. I would propose that maybe they haven't been prepared properly. Because if they're steamed, cut into bite-sized pieces and steamed, they're delicious. And so obviously with depletion, we want to get plenty of rest. Very important. And what's a complete meal? Here's a simple way to think of what is a complete meal. And what are the 3 macronutrients? Protein, carb, fat, right? So I like to say protein, vegetable. In fact, I like to start with vegetable. Vegetable, protein, fat. If your plate has that on it, it's going to be a complete meal. And then I mentioned adaptogen herbs there a second ago. I love this term because it's herbs. They generate our ability to adapt. It's a very small list of herbs. Things like ginseng is the classic adaptogen herb. And I wrote down the name Schizandra. Schizandra is a fantastic herb. The Chinese name is Wu Wei Zi. Zi means seeds, and Wu means 5. So it's the 5-flavor seed, 5-flavor herb. And that means that it goes into all the channels, and it helps everything, especially the liver and kidneys. And it's an astringent herb, so it kind of draws things together. It's a fantastic herb. And it's the simplest herb to take. You take the berries and soak them in water for the day or overnight, and you just drink the water. You can soak them again, and so there's no cooking even. And so they're fantastic. And so lastly, what about aging? What do we do about aging? Well, it turns out that the more diversity we have in our microbiome, and I'm going to mention that again in a minute too, the more clear our mind is. So, and by wild ferments, what do I mean by wild ferments? I'm not talking about probiotics. In fact, I don't really recommend probiotics. We want the foods that have been fermented. We are here because our ancestors figured out how to ferment food and how to keep food. In fact, I read once that humans are able to eat things that are a little off. So, and it just worked. That I guess we evolved doing that, fermenting foods. Yeah, of course, exactly, no refrigeration. And because now we have refrigeration, we don't eat as many of the ferments, but it's becoming much more popular. Also, we want to choose organic for all of our food as much as possible. And then going back to aging, fresh walnuts, the walnuts kind of look like a brain. That's good brain food. And when you get walnuts, you want to break them open and make sure that inside is nice and white, because that means it's fresh. And once it starts to turn a little translucent, it's more oxidized. And mushrooms, fantastic for the microbiome and for our brain too. And so there's Sandor Katz's name. Those are his books. Wild Fermentation is one of his first books, fantastic. The Art of Fermentation. And then there's some chickpea miso. Miso is one of the top fermented foods. And this is one of my favorites. This is right from here at Mariposa. They have a very good source of raw milk, and they make this raw milk kefir. And it has, this one, you notice it's kind of golden. That's their golden kefir, and it has turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon, and no sugar. And I can drink the whole bottle. It's really good. And then for those of you who don't care or are not tolerating cow milk, we have sheep milk yogurt at Mariposa right now, and I encourage you to buy it because they won't keep it if people don't buy it. Only downside is it's twice as expensive. But food is medicine. We're going to talk more about that. And so by eating that, we stay well. And so again, from Mariposa, I took some more pictures. We have Mendo Ferments by our wonderful Michelle Costa, and lots of different ones. My very favorite one, can't really see, it's called the fresh turmeric sauerkraut, and it's not in the name, but it has ginger in it. And ginger is a wonderful addition to fermented foods because you can see this is from the cooler, and so they're kind of a cold food. So it's good to have a little ginger in there with it. And then there's the pickles, Bubby's pickles, and Sonoma pickles, and olives. The olives that are in the cooler, they're fresh cured, and so they are a good source of probiotics as well. Microbes, we could say. And so, what we're going to do about all this. And so if you only come away with one thing, this is what, and those of you who are my clients, you've heard this a million times, we always want to exhale for ease. So we've been sitting for a while. So let's put our hands on our belly and see how big you can make your stomach on the inhale. You don't have to take a big deep breath, but just see how big you can make that belly. That's the belly relaxing and getting out of the way of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the main breathing muscle. It flattens out when we breathe in. And with every breath, the whole belly contents are being massaged and moved around with that breath. And so we breathe into a soft belly, and then see if we can make the exhale longer than the inhale. Breathing in and out through the nose. Can you hear what I'm doing with on the exhale? I'm kind of whispering a little bit to slow the exhale down. And this is the most important thing when we're trying to calm ourselves down, is to use that long exhale. And our breath is always with us. So anytime we're lifting something, we want to be exhaling. Because when we're exhaling, so just like the belly relaxed on the inhale, it knows to engage a little bit. This whole abdominal area engages on the exhale. And so if I'm lifting something and I'm breathing out, the muscles that support the spine to the pelvis are engaged, and so it gives me more power. So we will always want to exhale. Everything's easier when we're exhaling. And exhale for ease for short. So let's take that a step further. We've been sitting for a little while. And so let's take a breath in and get ready to stand up. And we're going to stand on the exhale. Breathing in and nice standing up on the exhale. Good. And now that we're up, let's look at the next element here. And for the fire element, we're going to move our spine a little bit. And you can do this while you're sitting too. It's okay. And so what I find is most Americans, me included, unless I'm doing my African dance, I'm not moving my spine very much. And so I'm seeing some good pelvis rolls, and you want to arch your back and curve your back. And then just notice what happens when I just, yes, and sitting you can be rolling around like this. And watch what happens when I just bend one knee. This hip falls down. And then the other knee. And if you do it quick, slow, you're doing the samba. So that is super important to move that spine. And it's another element of 5. I think of the spine from the skull to the pelvis as one, and then we've got our 2 arms and legs. So there's our 5. And so keeping the spine moving, it helps. If the spine is moving, everything else is moving. And okay, and exhale as you sit down. Okay, very good. So, and of course, staying mobile is really important for the heart. And so food is medicine. And that's why I don't mind spending the money on the organic food. It's worth it. By eating organic foods, I'm cutting out a whole host of chemicals that tend to come in. And so that's really important to remember. I was just going to say a little bit more about a complete meal. And so vegetables obviously are easy to get organic, and they're the least expensive thing in the stores, even though they're not cheap anymore. But protein, it's really important to get our protein from a small farm that's treated properly, and it's really quality over quantity with protein. And then we want to have lots of wild ferments and medicinal mushrooms, quality oils. And then our best carbs are really from the dense root vegetables, the starchy vegetables, and fruits. The whole area of grains is a more recent food, and it's just a more simple carb, and it tends to go more to sugar. So water, obviously we covered water. I want to get our couple quarts in. Another benefit of using the pitcher on your counter is it allows any chlorine to evaporate. So that's a good thing to do if you drink tap water, which I don't recommend. And then our center self-care seed is our microbiome diversity. We talked a little bit about that, but I think the next page. I'm always taking pictures of my plate because I'm thinking I'm going to use this sometime. This one just happened to have broccoli and asparagus, 2 fantastic vegetables, a little bit of chicken in the middle, and I have a special recipe where I cook the chicken with lots of vegetables. And so there's our plate as well. That's from a little handout I have. Mostly vegetables with a little bit of protein, a little carbs, ferments, and some good quality fat, and lots of water. And the reason I have that is we eat our vegetables with a fork, we use our spoon for the carbs, and we cut our protein with the knife, and we wipe our chin with the napkin. So that's what that's about. You can and the plate is the whole meal, so that's important to think of. And so then I think that this is kind of a mind-boggling number here. So we have, I looked up for the most recent review I could find, and they say we have, from children to men, is 17 to 36 trillion cells in the body. Zach Bush, who I mentioned before, who has studied the microbiome to the nth degree, says we have 70 trillion cells. Well, I guess he likes to exaggerate. And so if you take that number and times it times 10, that's how many microbes we have in the body. And so we can safely say we have at least 300 trillion microbes and at least 5,000 different species. And I've also read this other places that there's more like 15,000 to 40,000 species of microbes. And to take that a step further, let's look at how many genes. The microbes have about 2,000 genes in each one. They have a lot more genes than we do. And then we multiply that out, there's going to be 20 to 80 million genes in the microbiome, and we humans have 20,000 genes. So what I like to say is they invented us to carry them around. And we evolved from them. All the elements, a lot of the elements of our cells, just the very fact that we have cells, that all evolved from the microbes. The mitochondria, they've shown that that's quite connected up with a microbe and evolved from that. It's like, oh, that microbe knows how to make energy. Well, we'll put that inside the cell. Now, we've done 5 self-care seeds, and now let's do 5 self-care skills. My first one that I like to talk about has to do with the fact that the air is above. So when I'm standing, I like to reach for the sky with the top of my head. And another simple word for that is lift. That's another good little touchstone that you can think of. When I'm sitting or standing, I want to have my head over my shoulders, over my hips, and stand up straight. And of course it helps I had ballet all my life, so. But that's just a good way to think of it. And I do catch myself like this a lot. So always want to, and if you have a job or if you sit at the computer a lot, have a little mirror, over here somewhere that you can kind of glance at once in a while and check your posture. It's really a great way to form that habit of reaching for the sky. And then we have 10 on the tender, and we won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is one of my favorite and most important skills, self-care skills that we can have. And you've got a page on that in your packet. And basically, just real quickly, just kind of use your thumb and see if you can find a tender spot on the inside of your arm there. Just kind of look around. That's the first thing. It's like, where's the tender spot? And so once you find one, then you want to give it 10 little rubs, one direction. I'm kind of going, I call it combing out the tangle. If there's a tender spot, that means that the muscle has a tangle. It's tangled in a knot there. I call it combing out the tangle. So when we comb one direction, kind of slowly. We don't want to tease it. We want to comb it one direction. And we do about 10 of those, 8 to 10, 8 to 12 of those little rubs. If you do more, you might make it a little sore. So you just want to give it 10 little rubs. And if you do that several times a day through for a week or so, you'll go back to look for that tender spot and it'll be combed out. So we've got 600 muscles in the body, and they can all have tangles in them, sorry to say. And there's certain ones like the back of the shoulder blade and the back, I call it the back pocket here, the back hip. Every step we take, when I'm standing on one foot, that's the muscle that's keeping me from going like that. And so these muscles need massage. And it's best to do it ourselves because we're there and we can tell where the tender spots are. So you've got a page on that. And then, let's see, preparing vegetables. I've got a page on how to steam cook your vegetables. And I saw that and I was like, steam cook, that seems kind of weird. But, and it's all lined out there. But what we do is we kind of layer them. We start with the dense vegetables that take the longest to cook, and we put in the sort of medium ones, and then we put in the lighter ones, and it all comes out at the same time. And it's And it's kind of an art, and you have to find the right kind of a saucepan and steamer and so forth. And something I learned too is if this is the bottom of your pan, you fill the water maybe in 3/4 of an inch, something like that. Then you want to have some space, and then you want to have your steamer pot with some space between the two, so it's just steam coming into the vegetables, not water boiling through it. But yeah, and you can drink that steam water. Use it for a stock. That's fantastic. The thing we all want to do is to return to peace, return to calm. There's a nice little page on your handout there for that, and we use the senses. So I call it building a nest on the inside. And so if we do this on purpose beforehand, and we have this nest established inside us, then we have somewhere to go when we're upset about something. And so we use the senses. What are your favorite colors? So you create if you're a visual person, you create an image of your favorite place with all your favorite colors. What are your favorite scents? If you might be really into scents, so you have your favorite essential oil scents. What does the ground feel like under your feet? You want to just like a nest is made of lots of little twigs and feathers and so forth, you want to have as many qualities to this nest as possible, whatever feels good to you. And what are your favorite sounds? You bring in your favorite music. And what are your favorite foods? And who would your favorite person be to cook them and bring them to you? And so all the senses are involved. And so that if there's an upset that happens and I want to return to peace, first I take that nice breath. And as I exhale, I call to mind that beautiful nest that I have inside. And I take that issue into the nest and I give it some time to come up and out and to be resolved. So let's see what else. And who here is lucky enough to have a garden? All right, about half of you. That's good. I unfortunately I'm not one of those, and but I'm just can't say enough how important it is to be out in nature, even barefoot. You know, they talk a lot about that, but it turns out that by putting our feet right on the ground with no shoes, not only are we taking in some of the microbiome from the soil, we're connecting with the energy, the electricity of the earth that we evolved with. There's 100,000 strikes of lightning around the world, and all that energy comes in through the atmosphere and is absorbed by the earth. So it's very important to connect with that whenever we can. So don't worry about this. I just put that up there. This is in your packet as well. I call this the pharmaseed. And it has all the 5 seeds, and there are herbs and foods in each direction, because remember, food is medicine and herbs are food. And so these are all the amazing foods that we can make sure to take in regularly to stay well. Where are we now? Okay, this is my favorite thing of all. And so I call this the love flow. And it starts with trust. And I've thought about the word trust a lot. I'm not crazy about the word hope, because this guy Daryl, I can't remember his last name, somebody might remember, he said hope is some longing for something over which we have no agency. And I'm 100% behind having a positive attitude. That's my MO. But saying I hope I win the lottery it doesn't include any effort, except for maybe laying down the cash. But when I think of trust, I think of I've been making good decisions so far, I've been applying myself, and I'm trusting that the outcome will be good. So that's where I'm coming from when I use the word trust. And so today we're talking about healing, so I trust my body, heart, mind to heal. And I receive that healing. And going around the circle, I'm thankful for that healing. And that gratitude is a great way to kickstart this whole process, because it gets us in that mindset of calling it in. And out of that fullness, now that I'm thriving, I have more to give. And then I can keep going around the circle. And when all of those 4 qualities are in balance or in harmony, then the love is flowing. And how many are familiar with the term the placebo? Placebo is actually Latin for I make myself pleasing, or I'm pleased. And love is love. Love is pleasing. Love is admiration and attraction. It's like I want that to come to me, and I'm admiring it. Those are very powerful qualities. And so when I'm giving myself that love, trusting, receiving, thanking, and giving, then the love is flowing, and love is what heals. Because they've even discovered that placebo can heal something. So that is how we take that placebo effect and make it manifest in our body. When the love is flowing, love is what heals. And so here we are, back to the golden circle that we started with. And like I said, I just love the geometry of the circle. I find it fascinating. And I make it golden because gold is something that we admire, right? But let me hear about some other things that are more important than gold. Certainly in our culture, there are many, many more things that are more important than gold. What's the most important thing to you? Good health. And so I've got a list here for you. So I think of community. And some of these are what we call universal needs. There's universal needs that we all need. We all need justice. We all need honesty. And so wouldn't it be wonderful if we proceeded through our life in a way that we all had all those needs met? And one of my favorite ones is wonder, seeing things through the wonder of a child, the eyes of a child, the wonder. And this is going to blow your mind. This is a mantis. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called an orchid mantis. See its little tail? It evolved through those 4 billion years we talked about to look like the flower that it sits on to get its prey. And here's another picture of it sitting on the palm. And when it's active, it's crouching like that. And you can't see it, but it's got its little orchid in the back, just waiting. I just think that is so amazing. It's also beautiful, that color. In conclusion, here we have young children learning the 5 elements. And notice they're Asian, and I think that's appropriate because in that culture, these tastes are very well known, and they're all lined up with the colors and everything. I think that's so cute. And like I said, it really is my dream that this Seeds of Wellness become like a curriculum, because all the subjects are here. Everything from anatomy to zoology and chemistry, geometry. We talked a little bit about that. And imagine if when we learned subjects, it was grounded in the body rather than just sort of on the page somewhere. And if we learn just these basic things when we're children, then we'd be able to stay well, like I said. There's a yin and yang. And another beautiful picture of the Karst Mountains. And I would like to finish by creating a circle. So let's do it. Let's all stand up and make a circle. So here we all are. We can see each other. So everyone just take a moment, and we have a moment, so let's go around the circle and just say one word that comes to mind, maybe that's something you learned tonight or something that you'd like to create.
When we're in a circle, we see each other.
One word is fine.
vegetables.